Hey everyone, it's Jonathan, and welcome to the 200th episode of Every Version Ever. If you had told me back in 2017 when Sarah and I first reviewed the 1903 silent version of Alice in Wonderland that video would eventually turn into a full-on podcast and we would still be doing this 8 years and 200 episodes later, I don't know that I would have believed you, but here we are. To celebrate this new milestone, I wanted to have Sarah back to talk about more silent films, since a silent movie was where it all began. Sarah and I have covered a bunch of old silent versions of stories. There are several each for things like Alice in Wonderland and A Christmas Carol, and I knew there were a handful for Cinderella too. It turns out there was more than I expected, but a good number of them are feature length, so I think we'll save them for future podcasts. So today Sarah and I are just covering the short silent versions of Cinderella. I think the longest one is like 23 minutes. So everything that I could find that was shorter than that, including a roughly 5.5-minute film from 1899, which is one of the main reasons I wanted to do this episode, because I knew Sarah would be fascinated to see a version that old. So thanks for listening for the past 200 episodes. Here's to 200 more. Okay, we're finally doing it.
Welcome back to Wonderland Wednesday, but not.
It's the 200th episode of Every Version Ever.
Cue the confetti.
Whoa.
Celebrating as only introverts can.
I mean, technically this is something I've been wanting to cover for ages. The 1899 Cinderella is one that I've had on my list to do probably since I did the original Cinderella, the Disney Cinderella.
How long has that been?
Oh, I don't know. Ages. Like, Cinderella, I know you like old silent films, and this one is from 1899. Mm-hmm. So I was like, this has to be one that we do.
These were interesting. It's been a long time since we watched silent films together, it feels like. It's good to be back.
Yeah, I think, the last one that I can think of right off the top of my head was when we did all of the A Christmas Carol silent films.
Right.
And I've had this in mind to do a similar type of episode for ages. And then once I realized that the 200th episode was going to fall into the span of time where I was doing Cinderellas, I wanted to do all the early Cinderellas. Although it turns out we're not doing all of them because there's a whole lot more than we're talking about today. And most of them are like feature length.
I was a little bit thrown off when you were telling me how many Cinderellas there are versus the other classic princess stories of Snow White and Sleeping Beauty. Like I was saying, they're all redemption stories, but for some reason Cinderella is rising to the top for adaptations.
It really is, because I ran into this getting ready to do another episode on early animated princesses, because I had done early animated Cinderellas with Eli and we had a lot. And I thought we could do another one about Sleeping Beauty and Snow White. And then I think I found like 2 each. Like there was a little bit more than that. We expanded it out a little beyond the scope of what I had thought. But for some reason, Cinderella is the popular one, and Sleeping Beauty and Snow White have kind of fallen by the wayside.
Sleeping Death is not as popular as
Maybe
Fashion Wear Redemption. Which technically this story goes back to ancient Egypt, doesn't it? In its earliest iteration.
I'm not sure that anyone knows what the earliest iteration of Cinderella is, because there's so many stories that could conceivably have come from the same root.
Let's say at least ancient Egypt. What if we realize it goes back even farther?
It could be.
As long as women have been caught in bad housework circumstances with oppressive roomies waiting for a nice guy to finally show up, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. All I know is that there is so much more Cinderella content than there is Sleeping Beauty and Snow White. I think we are going to do another episode later on about Sleeping Beauty, but it's going to have more stop motion in it than silent, because I really only found one short silent Sleeping Beauty. But there's a bunch of Cinderella, so we'll have one standalone episode on short silent Cinderellas. But in the future, maybe we'll have to come back and do some of the longer ones, but probably give them each their own episode, because I'm sure there'll be more to talk about. The ones we're talking about today, none of them, well, one of them will be a little over 20 minutes, but most of them are like 10 to 15 minutes. And the first one we're talking about is not even 6 minutes.
Okay.
And the first two we're talking about are both by George Méliès. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his name for sure. He's a French filmmaker. He's the guy who did A Trip to the Moon. If anyone is familiar with early silent cinema, that's like one of the most famous early science fiction
I
shorts.
think I'm familiar with a still photograph from A Trip
Probably.
to the Moon, but I don't think I've ever seen it, which...
The man in the moon with the spaceship crashed into his eye.
Yes.
Yes, that's him.
Yes. So this guy sounds kind of famous.
Yes. He's probably one of the most famous early silent filmmakers.
And he is creative.
Yes. And I realized, just looking at his Wikipedia page, I realized that this is technically classified as a trick film rather than like a straight up adaptation of Cinderella, because it's more interested in the special effects than it is the story, which watching it, you can definitely tell that, because the second half of this just kind of got confusing with all of the random stuff that started happening. Because like the first half was obviously the story of Cinderella. They skipped past most of the abuse and sadness and got straight into the fairy godmother appears, starts making magic happen, sends her off to the ball.
Well, they had like 2.5 minutes to tell the story or something before they went into other stuff that had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, it was very short. But then the second half, I'm not exactly sure what was going on, because you had all of these people appear. They started changing into clocks. Like the first clock that appeared, it was obvious that it was supposed to be like, I don't know, Father Time or something, telling her that it's time to go home. It's almost midnight. But then there's all these other clock people starting to appear, and they're like dancing around, turning into clocks, back and forth, all merging into one giant clock. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on here.
One of the you're paying attention to these details more than I am. One of the things that wrapped my attention the most was the fact that the prince actually had facial hair, which I'm not used to. And I thought it was...
I noticed that.
It was like a beard or a big goatee and long hair, and it was just something different.
Yeah.
And I didn't know whether they were going for just like 1700s vibe or, you know, with both of these versions, you don't know, like I can tell, especially when we get to the second one, how influenced it was by the time, but I also feel like maybe they were falling into the trap of partly period, partly modern in the costuming. Anyway.
I think for his second take, that's how I felt. I don't think I really noticed that with this
Yeah,
one.
not with this one. No, this one felt kind of 1700s or something.
Yeah.
We could go into great detail about this film, but it's 5 minutes. I mean, you guys might as well watch it.
Yes, that's true.
See the mice getting big and everything.
I liked the special effects. Like, if anyone has paid attention to the outro that I made for the Cinderella episodes, I used, I think, at least one, if not two clips from this. Like, the special effects are what make this one stand out, and I just think it's really creative. I especially like the old guy with the clock who bounces in and points at the clock and then disappears in a puff of smoke.
It was a Jonathan moment.
Well, his second take was from 1913. Different sources say 1912. I think it was made in 1912 and then released in 1913. But his second film was called Cinderella or the Glass Slipper.
They belabored all of the transformation, but this is an interesting version.
Yes, I really liked this one.
Pretty much right off the bat, you have the stepsisters coming in, one or both of them looking as if they're wearing velvet and giant hats that are of the times. So the costuming right away is interesting. And the fairy godmother is wearing this giant tasseled front that looks very shiny and this interesting headgear. And then she seems to be accompanied by fairies with wings.
Yeah, there's different fairies coming in and out, and they all had very different, unique costumes, especially the two that were in the garden that looked like they had big butterfly wings.
Yes. So if you like that period of fashion and art and everything, this was very artistic.
Mm-hmm. And this one also, you could tell that he was interested in the special effects because he went all out with, like, especially the carriage transformation. Like having
Sure.
all the fairies come in with different pieces and then putting them together and then having them morph and transform and eventually become the whole big carriage.
The pumpkin part, the way they did that was interesting. I hadn't realized that lizards were supposed to turn into footmen, was it?
Yeah.
And so they included this whole transformation of the lizards getting bigger and then turning into men.
And they did the same thing with the rats too, which was funny because they had the two rats in the trap, and then they let them out and caught them in a barrel, and then they had two old men appear in the barrel and crawl out.
But with all of the special effects and everything artistic that they did that was interesting, my favorite part was probably when she threw her broom down in disgust. I laughed and laughed. It was relatable. Done with this. I want to go to the party. I want to have a life.
Yeah, that was a great scene.
But also the way they did the clock. They had this whole elaborate thing after it was midnight.
Mm-hmm.
You guys just need to watch it because you had a whole parade of people hitting the bell on this clock. So there was more than one clock type scene, wasn't there?
It reminded me of his first take at the story because there was a bunch of stuff with the clock. And I'm just like, does this guy just really like clock motifs or
He
something?
must have. People's heads popping out of the clock. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, no, it was very artistic. Also, the prince was played by a woman in this version. And maybe they were low on people in the troupe, but they had men for other parts. So maybe they were just low on people for the troupe.
The only thing I could think of is like, it's not completely uncommon, especially at that time, for a male role to be played by a female if the male is supposed to be young.
Okay.
Like a lot of silent films had an actress, but it was usually like a young boy. Like Peter Pan was always played by an actress.
Sure.
So this would be like the oldest example that I've seen so far. Not that I'm an expert in silent movies.
Sure.
It's not completely unheard of. If you wanted a young looking face for your lead male, then you would have an actress. One thing I noticed with this one too is that there was a lot of scenes, and I've noticed this with other silent films, there's a lot of scenes where they keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over. Like the scene where they're having everybody go out to search for the missing princess, and it's just these people going through the forest. And it was probably a set, and it was probably the same people just walking around the set up and down over and over and over again, so it looked like there was hundreds of people.
Sure.
And then the shoe montage, that like so far this might be the earliest shoe montage that I've seen, because like with a lot of versions of Cinderella, you have the scene where there's people going around trying on all the shoes, and normally, especially in the more funny ones, it's like a wide variety of different feet going into the shoes. It reminded me of other shoe montages that I've seen, except it was all kind of the same. It was just a line of ladies coming up and getting the shoe tried on and then moving on to the next one.
Yeah, it kind of went on a bit, and then they got to a really random one with some dude in giant wooden shoes with hay on them or something.
Which reminded me of a different one. I'm trying to remember which one it was, but it was like a whole montage of just feet, and then there was one random giant man foot.
I keep thinking about Betty Boop with the toe with the face on it, just like, no, this isn't, it's not working, give it up.
But yeah, then the last scene of that went on a long time too. And then there was a wedding scene, which you don't usually get the whole wedding scene, but then that was kind of boring, and it took a long time.
I didn't find it boring, and she had a really long train, or veil or whatever that was.
That's true, but it was just kind of slow.
That part didn't actually feel slow to me, so difference of opinion.
But on the whole, I liked that one.
That's a good version.
Yeah.
Very creative. Interesting period design.
Yeah.
Yeah. Recommend.
Yeah.
For your next silent movie party.
Well, the next one is from 1907, and I cannot find much information about this. I literally found it today. Like, this was not one on Wikipedia. I just randomly stumbled across it when I was looking for information on a different version today.
Because you're you.
There's probably other versions of Cinderella out there that I have not found. There will be a couple that I'll mention when we get to another one that I cannot find. I know there's a lot of lost silent films, so this is nothing new, but at least for this one, there's no real information about this one. I found out it was made in the UK. That's about all I know about this one.
This one, they seem to want to experiment with different techniques, and they were making probably one of the earliest attempts at physical comedy throughout this, which if I had lived at the time, I might have gotten a giggle out of, but this is the jaded 21st century, so...
Yeah, there was this guy who kept randomly falling down.
Well, and then the woman trying on the shoe, falling out of the chair. But they also did this weird scene where part of the wall falls down and like you can see what's happening in maybe back at the palace or something, and then they suck it back up in reverse. And then the end scene they actually added in color, which was a very... Yeah, I'm used to that effect in touched up photographs, but it's basically still partly black and white, but with extra colors added in. It was odd. Yeah, and interesting.
There was a lot of interesting additions to this one. Like, it, not even just the experimental stuff, but there was stuff in here that was like, where did this come from? Because there was this weird little gnome that seemed to accompany the fairy godmother.
I'm wondering if it was supposed to be a brownie or something.
I don't know.
Like like a woodland spirit.
Yeah, but he popped out of a box or something. I don't know. It was odd. I don't know what was up with this weird little weirdo.
I think they probably would have had more context at the time.
Maybe. And I feel like that with a lot of silent films, like they just kind of expect you to know things, and we don't. So we feel kind of lost. This fairy godmother also had a lot of helpers, but these looked like angels rather than fairies.
Women in white were probably pretty popular at the time.
And there was also little children with little wings.
That probably did it for them aesthetically as well. No, it looked nice.
Another interesting addition to the story was, I think her father was still alive.
I think it might have been a butler. We have differing viewpoints.
He kissed her on the head when she was finally accepted at the end. So
I don't know.
I mean, it could have been a very affectionate butler. I don't know.
Yeah. The only nice person in the house. I don't know.
In some versions of the story, the father is still alive.
Really?
He's just kind of forgotten about his daughter in favor of the stepfamily.
Oh, rat bag. What the heck?
He's not always dead, even in the old fairy tale version. So
it's just sometimes he deserves to be, apparently. I don't know.
He doesn't usually show up in most filmed versions. They don't usually go back to the versions where he's still alive to mine for content, I guess. And maybe it wasn't him. I don't know. But it just seemed like this guy was hanging around with the stepfamily for most of the movie.
We don't have enough cue cards for this.
No, there was very few. Just an interesting thing. Whether it was the father or whether it was a butler, it was an addition to this version that you don't see.
We also got old Alice vibes because of all the time outside and
that's true.
Driveways.
Yeah. Probably saved money on sets, but the whole ball scene was filmed in a park or something.
But they had enough sets. I feel like it wasn't necessary, so whatever worked.
The ones where it was inside, like when she fled the ball and then ran through the hall with the gnome disguised as a statue, whatever he was, that set seemed rather small. I don't think it would have fit the number of people that they had in the park. That's the only thing I can think of, is like they wanted a place where they could fit a lot of people, and the park was probably the best option.
Sure.
But yeah, this one was kind of an odd addition. A lot of experimental choices. It was interesting. It probably wasn't a favorite, but if you're into old silent movies, I think it's probably worth a watch.
If you wanted to see what they were experimenting with and have the aesthetic of the time, then
yeah,
it's worth a look, but
yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah. Well, the next one is from 1911, And I like the 1907 one. We don't have a lot of information.
Even less, probably. But this one, out of all the ones that we have watched so far today, you get the clearest picture of people's faces.
Mm-hmm.
It's closer.
Yeah. And I felt like, I mean, the longer one, that one, I mostly could tell what was going on. This one, like, I feel like nothing went on too long, and I felt like I knew what was going on.
It was clearer
For the
and
most
closer.
part. Yeah.
They pantomimed very clearly, and you could tell that there was dialogue going on that we have no idea what it was.
Yeah.
This is also another one, two things, where they were clearly trying to blend an old style, like maybe 1700s, but her hair is not period correct. It's correct for that period with the long sausage curls, and you can tell that she's wearing the dark theater makeup or movie makeup on her eyes to bring them out. And then this is another one where this one genuinely does seem, and maybe the other one did too, this one genuinely does seem to have a father without a spine.
I'm assuming that, again, that's what was going on.
Where she's just there in her little raggedy apron helping everybody, and the stepmother obviously has major attitude all over her face, and they keep sending her away.
The step family, I feel like this one is the first one where they've really played up the step family. Like, they were really hamming it up.
Sure. Also, when the herald first comes up to invite people to the ball, he looks like he's outside of a modern cottage on a cement sidewalk, which was interesting little touch there. But
he also looked like a card soldier from Alice in Wonderland.
Why not? But no, I this was a good version. She was a very, very beautiful Cinderella.
Mm-hmm. I also really like the fairy godmother. This is the first fairy godmother we've seen who is not like an elegant young woman. This is like a cute old lady with big frilly clothes.
Right. Which were partly of the times and partly old fashioned.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this was a pretty good version.
Yeah. I liked this one. I liked it better than the last one we watched.
This might be my favorite so far.
I could see that.
But yeah, she had beautiful flowing clothes, and they didn't belabor her rescue. And they had another... This was another one where she was transformed back into her costume for the party. But it ended rather abruptly, like she was entering court, and then it's like the end. Just like 2 seconds of her coming into the throne room or something.
Yeah, the whole thing clipped along at a really quick pace, and then it ended just as quickly as it began.
But if you're going to watch a silent version, this is one of the best ones that we've watched.
Yeah, I like this one. But I tend to like anything with cute old ladies, so...
Or old men jumping around with clocks. I don't know.
Yeah, this one needed an old man with a clock. That would have been perfect. But I also, before the very end, where they go back to the castle, I also liked the end where she is revealed. Like, I liked that they had her pull out the shoe again, and I liked that the fairy godmother came back and transformed her in front of her step family, and then you got to see her step family's shocked and devastated faces.
Her triumphal exit.
Yes. Yeah, this is a good one. I think this one can be another high recommendation.
Yes, 1911.
I am going to assume the sound quality is very different. We have moved to a different room because of constant interruptions. So.
Like old times.
Yes. So the next one we're going to be talking about is one I've technically already covered on the podcast, the 1922 stop motion version from Lottie Reiniger. I covered this one during the old animations that I did with Eli Sansa, but I wanted Sarah to see this one because it's both a silent film and stop motion, and it's just an interesting, unique way of making a movie, and I thought she might appreciate it.
I did. I don't know if I've ever seen one made with paper quite like this.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the font style that they used. I feel like this is like Tim Burton's Long Lost Grandparents or something. There is a slightly unsettling and dark... I think it was probably partly just me.
A little bit, because it is partly based on the Grimm's version. Like most of the ones we've watched for this episode have been based pretty much completely on the Charles Perrault version. But this one had some of the Grimm's details thrown in, and the Grimm's fairy tales are always a bit darker.
It's very interesting because there doesn't seem to be any fairy godmother. There's like this magical tree.
The tree is from the Grimm's version. There's no fairy godmother in the Grimm's version.
I want to know more about this magical tree. This feels like really good art inspiration.
In the Grimm's version, I believe the tree is growing from her mother's grave.
Oh, hence the little crosses. I mean, I knew there were graves there, but... Oh, that is cool.
So the tree is sort of a symbolic representation of her mother.
Watching over her. That is so cool. Oh, I love it. I do. Oh, man. I need to know more.
You can borrow my book with all the versions.
Cool. No, very, very artistic, very interesting. The darkest part is the foot thing. Well, it's not the darkest part. It's the gory part. Because it's not like she just... I mean, it would be bad enough if she took off one toe, but they have her, like, hacking off half of her foot with blood dripping, which thankfully it's just black paper.
Yes.
But still, that's dark.
And also, I've never been able to figure out what happened to the mother, because it's like she exploded in half.
For a second there, it almost looked like she was turning into a crocodile or something. But that's fine. She was evil. Sarah's getting calloused. No, Cinderella seemed a little too compliant in getting in the cellar. I don't know what that was about. Does her mom have a gun or something? I don't know. Either way, it worked out, and her relationship with the prince seemed very sweet in this one. So I like it. It was cool. Dark, but cool.
At some point, I need to go and do an episode of iHeart Animation on Lottie Reiniger's feature film, The Adventures of Prince Ahmed, which is probably, at least as far as I know, the oldest surviving full-length animated feature. Like, it's even older than Disney. Like, she was a pioneer in animation.
Wow. Sounds like she doesn't get enough credit.
Not really. Just kind of animation nerds know about her.
She didn't build a theme park. It was her own fault.
But at some point, you might want to watch that with me. I think, I don't know when I'll get to it, but I know that is one that I want to do at some point in the future.
Interesting. Well, this has been educational. Recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yes. The last one I wanted to talk about is one called A Modern Cinderella. This was from 1910. And there were two other ones that I tried to find. One with the same name from 1911 and one different title. I can't remember it right now. Both of them were set in modern day.
Like the Lizzie McGuire one, but over 100 years ago.
Cinderella Up to Date from 1909. That was the one that sounded like the most interesting. It was about a girl who buys a pair of shoes and loses one of them, and then a guy finds a shoe, places a classified ad to look for her, and eventually they find each other and get married.
I like it.
It sounded really unique, and I wanted to find that one, and I could not find it anywhere. So I guess I'm assuming it's lost. There's so many lost silent films that don't technically exist anymore.
It also sounds like something that could actually happen.
It does.
Like a weird thing that could happen.
Yeah.
You know how I met my wife? I found her shoe.
But this one was a modern Cinderella for 1910. And this one was really unique. I like this idea of making a modern day Cinderella, but in the past.
It seemed slightly lower stakes. Like maybe it was high stakes, but it seemed slightly lower stakes in the plot line.
Yeah, she wasn't like a servant. Cinderella lived with her stepsister, only one, at a boarding house.
Who was crabby and looked like she was like 10 plus years older than her. So maybe she had reasons to be crabby.
But she wasn't She didn't seem to be a slave in her own house.
No, she looked like she was 14, but apparently she's old enough to get married.
I'm terrible at figuring out how old people are, so don't look at me to figure out ages. I think somebody's 17 and they're actually 14 and vice versa.
Different growth rates, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, apparently she was old enough to get married, but she had very much innocent schoolgirl type of a vibe.
Mm-hmm. But I really liked the quote-unquote fairy godmother in this one. It was an elderly lady who lived at the boarding house also that took a liking to her. Mm-hmm. But I liked how she would always just like give the side eye to the stepsister.
Yeah, maybe tell her off. Nobody was ultimately going to get away with anything, but it wasn't as intense as other versions of Cinderella. It's more like, I don't like you and I'm going to let you know about it. And I'm going to buy your sister a dress and shoes for the party that you guys were invited to.
Yeah, there was obviously no magic since this is modern day. They were just invited to a party, and Cinderella only had an old dress and one shoe. So the fairy godmother went out and bought her a new outfit and found a matching shoe for her.
And the shoe got lost. Like, somehow it came off of her foot and then was getting kicked around the dance floor. But what I don't understand... Okay, I get maybe the sister wanted that guy for herself, I'm guessing. And then it says that she denies that she knows her sister or where she lives or whatever. But why does Cinderella act like that's not her shoe? Was she just super embarrassed that it came off of her foot and she wanted to act like everything was fine?
The only thing I could think of is that because we don't hear the dialogue, we just get like a title card here and there. The only thing I could figure out is that maybe the stepsister told her to play dumb, like, don't talk to him. And she just went along with it because her stepsister was in charge. I don't know.
I don't know. We do dumb stuff when we're young.
Yeah. When we're 14 or 17 and look 14 or however old she was.
15 and a half. I have no idea. Anyway, this guy was obsessing, like, he kissed the shoe, but it was because of her, not because he had a problem. And then once he found out that his grandmother had bought the shoe and he was miming that out and laughing, I'm like, I kind of like this guy.
Yeah, that's the big twist. It turns out that the prince, quote unquote, is actually the fairy godmother's, quote unquote, grandson. I don't think she even realized that they were making a love connection or whatever.
He's cheerful and sweet, and they resolve the issue quickly, and next thing you know, they're going off in a carriage, because, was it a carriage or a car? I would have to have been a carriage.
It said a modern day carriage, so I assumed it was an automobile.
It could go either way in 1910, so apparently I was not paying enough attention. Oh dear. And then the stepsister is upset, and little boys are scraping rice off of the sidewalk as people walk away. Something like that. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a fun one. I'm glad I found this one, because this was another late addition to the lineup. The random things that you find when you're searching the internet.
Side note, the stepsister's dress for the party looked lovely. You know, this is Edwardian period, and it had whatever detailing on the front, and
it looked like butterfly wings.
The cool shape to it. Very nice, very nice. So hopefully she found happiness later after she maybe learned her lesson. I don't know.
Find an evil stepbrother to marry.
Yes, and go be grumpy together. Well, and I'm sure it didn't help that she was wearing uncomfortable shoes.
Yes, that was a defining characteristic of her. She kept taking off her shoes and rubbing her feet because she had poorly sized shoes.
Yeah. We need to stop doing it, ladies. It's not worth it. Some shoes, it's fine if you're going to the event and you don't have to move that much. But other times, it's really not worth it. Anyway, feminine side note. And there you have it.
So of all of these, do you have a favorite?
The 20s one comes to mind. Lottie's.
Stop motion.
If I had to pick one to reference again, maybe that one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the one, was it 1913 with
The 20-minute one, the longer one.
or was it 1922? No, it wasn't 1922. The one with the sausage curls and the heavy eye makeup. I'd watch that one again. But if I could only, I don't know. There were good things because the creative element of the longer form one with the clock, the way the one with the sausage curls and the makeup and the flowing gown, that one was good too. But for sheer creativity, unique art, and what should have a place in history, Lottie's version probably places number one. That was special.
Yeah, that's my favorite too. Yeah, they all had good things about them. I think of the straight adaptations, probably the 1913 one, the longer one. But I did really like the modern day one. But an overall favorite, it's the Lottie Reiniger one. That's my top pick from probably both this and the one I did with Eli with all the animation.
The one with the butterfly fairy wing costumes, that was pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Feel free to check these out, guys. If you need some sentimental time travel. Wear something fancy if you can. Please do it for me. If you have an Edwardian costume, please wear it while you watch these films and sip Earl Grey and have those little cakes.
I think there was more than once where Sarah was watching them and she said, "This makes me feel like dressing up fancy."
It's just, I was like, does this make you want to be fancy? This is making me want to be fancy. I have that in me where it's like, someday I may break down and buy Edwardian period clothing and just wear it because I can, because I'm an adult, because I've finally, maybe I just need to do it. I mean, this is America. We can still be eccentric. And I could probably say the same thing about Indonesia and Mexico and pick a country. Like, how many people you could probably get away with wearing Edwardian clothing? I don't know.
But could you just walk into the store in the middle of small town Iowa in an Edwardian costume?
If it's me. Heck yeah.
There goes that lady again, wearing the old ancient getup.
You thought people showing up in a bathrobe was eye-catching.
That's true. It's better than going to the store in your pajamas.
Yeah, be extra fancy. Bring somebody with you who's also wearing pajamas and throw candy at people. I don't know. Or don't do any of that. But yeah, I could use an Edwardian dress. Anyway, on that note, my fantasies.
Okay, well, I think we'll probably be back later because we have another episode in mind. So until then.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Every Version Ever. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My link tree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.